The next piece that I want to talk about is something that we all come back to, which is measurement. And the point here is we've all talked about getting beyond the click, getting beyond the impression. But I think that if we're going to have a much more user-centric approach to our advertising efforts, the metrics need to change in a profound way as well. And I'm going to give you two examples of these. You know, we've talked a lot about how users engage emotionally with ads. Well, we need to actually find a way of really measuring this. And at Google, we're focused on this very aggressively, and I know that a lot of other companies are as well. Just to give you an example of a project that we just ran, we used some special biometric technology to measure things like hover rates, eye tracking, et cetera, to measure the emotional engagement of a user as an ad played out. And this happened to be a video ad that was running in a banner. And we were able to determine precisely where in that ad the emotional connection was the strongest. And as a result of that, the insights that were given back to the advertisers were truly profound. Now, of course, this was a one-off, and it's not something that's common in any of our campaigns that we run today. But imagine if we could actually do this at scale and deliver this as a means to measure the efficacy of all of our campaigns. And imagine if we could tie it to things like likelihood to purchase. You know, we recently did a study where we found that a well-executed display campaign can increase the likelihood to purchase by 24%. And a rich media interactive campaign can increase it by 34%. Imagine if that wasn't just a one-off case study, but if we could actually measure that on every single campaign that we ran. So that emotional engagement, being able to measure that, I think, is going to become a primary criteria of the efficacy of our campaigns in the next few years. The other one that we've all talked about for a long time is tying online campaigns to offline conversions. And the example that I'll use here is a decidedly offline product, Quaker Oatmeal, which has existed for over 100 years. Now, they ran a display campaign and a YouTube campaign a few months ago, and what they saw was that as a direct result of that campaign, there was a 9% increase in offline sales. Now, imagine if they didn't have to do that as a one-off case study, but that was just a standard metric that we could all deliver to our advertisers on a campaign-by-campaign basis. The prediction that I'm talking about here is saying that for well over a third of those campaigns, that's in fact going to be the case. The primary metric won't be an impression or a click or a conversion. It will be something on the order of measuring emotional engagement with the consumer or directly tying it to offline sales. And the technology to do that is coming into place. We just need to find a way to be able to do that at scale across all of our systems. I just talked about giving users much more direct control over the advertising that they see. Another thing that I think is important, and I think all of us as consumers would agree, is giving them the information about the types of ads that they would see. With the click of a button, a user should be able to find out what type of data of theirs was used to deliver that ad, who delivered that ad, and give them the controls to be able to change that if they so choose. For example, if a user saw an ad because they live in Boston, it's mid-December, and they've been looking for flights to Miami, then we should tell them that. If a user saw an ad because they're sports enthusiasts and it's 80 degrees outside, we should tell them that. And that should happen on every single ad. You know, the technology is coming into place to be able to do just that. I'm not going to dive into the issues that are sort of swirling around our industry in terms of these types of things, but I'm going to make one point, which is that in all of these conversations, we can't lose sight of the fact that we have to put the users front and center. When I go home, I know, for example, that my wife doesn't want to talk about all the industry jargon or be given another set of 50 controls to control how her data is being used. She doesn't care about third-party cookies or first-party cookies. What users care about is being told in very clear, precise terms how their data is being used and have very simple controls about how that can be used in the future. And that's what we should all aspire towards. And I think there's going to be a wave of innovation in this area in terms of capabilities, both integrated into advertising and other types of innovation that's going to allow users to do that. And we're going to have to do that as an industry as a whole. I just wanted to pause and really applaud the industry's self-regulatory efforts around things like ad choices, which has a vision to deliver this type of information across all display ads on the internet. I think the momentum behind that is tremendous. I think we need to keep that up. And if we do that, 25 billion ads a day are going to have this type of information associated with them. I think that's a goal that we can all feel proud aspiring towards, and the technology is coming into place to be able to do that. Now, if we do all of these 5 predictions that I talked about, it comes to my favorite prediction, which is that I think that nearly half of all users, if they were ever polled, would say that display advertising is their favorite ad format. As you heard me allude to a little bit earlier, I said today that number is something like 18% of all users say that display ads are useful or very useful. But as I said, if we did all of those things that were embedded in my prediction, that number would increase to something like 2/3, 66%. So it's not that big of a stretch to say that about half of those users would say that display is their favorite format. And I think that's all an industry that we'd be extremely proud to be a part of. So just to recap, the predictions that I've talked about are online impressions per users would decrease 25%. At the same time, engagement rates on those ads would increase across the board everywhere by 50%. Users will have a direct say, a precise direct say in over 25% of the ads that are being delivered to them, up from minuscule numbers today. A full third of all campaigns will have a primary metric that's more than just clicks and impressions, whether it's emotional engagement, whether it's online to offline sales. 25 billion ads a day will have direct information about why that ad got delivered to the users. And if we do all of these things, well over 40% of users would say that display advertising is their favorite format. Some of you have heard me talk in the past about how I think we as an industry can get from a $25 billion industry today in a few short years to a $200 billion industry. I'm a big believer in it. I think it's going to happen. It's the reason why we at Google are investing so heavily in display advertising. And these predictions I would submit to you today are going to be mileposts along the way as we achieve that steady growth from the size of the industry today to that overall vision of $200 billion in the course of the next few years.